For example, if you look at left-wing, left-wing political violence, it's bad. It's a lot smaller by almost any measure that you measure it than right-wing political violence. But almost any measure over the last 30 years, there's been more violence from the right than from the left. Now, if you add the left up with Islamists, there's a connection. But if you add the two up, it gets a little closer. But it's not increasing, and that surprises. Because the reality is that you'd expect it to increase. And given what kids are being taught in school today, given what professors are drilling into their heads, you would think there would be a lot more violence, a lot more rioting, a lot more killing, a lot more, I don't know, just violent action. Given that the professors have given them a thumbs up, given them a sanction, said it's okay, not only okay, it's required, it's necessary. Now, the professors never go out there. So it's surprising how little violence there is, relatively speaking, given how bad our educational system is. I mean, all these numbers of deaths and killings and everything include things like school shootings and everything else. Again, homicides are down and relatively low in American history. Surprising, given how awful our education is. In particular, what they teach at our universities. If speech is violence, you'd expect there'll be a lot more violence against speakers. Now, what all of these studies don't take into account, and this is their big weakness, is they look at murders, and because murders are easy to measure, easy to count. It's objective whether somebody's dead or not. And in that realm, yeah, the numbers are not that alarming, and they have not increased. But what about other forms of violence? What about silencing speakers, not letting you speak by banging drums in the background, and by yelling at him, by singing, by whatever, right? Whatever means. What about other forms of violence, like what Antifa does? Antifa rarely kills somebody, but it disrupts events, it beats people up. Who's measuring that? Is that being measured? Can that be measured? How does one measure it? What counts and what doesn't count? It could very well be that by those measures, the violence, particularly on the left, is significantly higher. It is significantly higher. But again, those are things that are hard to measure. Again, by the measure of body count, the right is much more destructive than the left. Just three events that each one of them were based on a kind of, you could call it a right-wing manifesto, killed more people than almost, I think, any other leftist kind of event, or for that matter, Islamist event, except with the exception of 9/11. Tree of Life, killing in the synagogue, the El Paso Walmart attack, and the Buffalo supermarket shooting, those three, are huge in terms of number and their lethality. And they're all kind of far right, as defined today, right? So I would caution you not to get too riled up about the current levels of violence. Now, it could be that it's going to get much worse. It's possible. Something would have to trigger it. I'm not sure what. But it could be that it's going to get much worse. Again, the educational system. And the thing that scares me the most of everything that's happened, I mean, Charlie's shooting was horrific and scary and just disturbing and horrible and tragic and everything, right? But what really disturbed me even more than that, because you could assign that to some crazy individual who did this, but what was disturbing was the reaction. How many young people said, yeah, it was okay. Now, does that mean we're heading towards more violence? I don't know. I mean, what I think is happening is while young people, influenced by their professors, and you know, you can include all the pro-Palestinian demonstrations on campuses, while they are all, violence is okay, speech is violence, we should silence these guys. You know, it's okay for us to occupy buildings. It's okay for us to beat up Jewish kids. It's okay. All of these things are okay, they say. The people who are actually willing to actually act, their number is very small. It's easy to pitch a tent and live in a tent for a while. It's kind of cool. Hang out with your buddies and pretend to be, you know, to virtue signal to the world how much you're sacrificing for the poor Palestinians. But how many of those people are willing to actually fly to Gaza and fight on the side of Hamas? I think zero. How many of them are willing to occupy a campus building? Not a particularly risky thing. A few dozen maybe, out of the hundreds that pitch tents. Very few are willing to actually engage in the violent activity. And how many of them are willing to actually shoot, kill the people whose speech they consider violence? Very, very, very few. Luckily for all of us. That is, somehow civilization has a hold on these people that's strong enough to overcome the beliefs that they might only be accepting in a shallow way from their professors. I mean, it is fascinating to you know, when you see people being questioned in the street about, I don't know, their support for the Palestinians, and they're asked which river and which sea. They have no clue. They don't know where Palestine is. They don't know anything about the history. They don't understand anything. A lot of this is just kind of the cool thing to do. How many of them are willing to go man the barricades for this cause? Very few. And good. I mean, I'm really happy. Because if everybody who went through a intersectionality, post-colonial, crazy left, anti-civilizational class actually was radicalized to the point of action, then we would be in really, really grave danger as a civilization. There would be riots in the streets. There would be a revolution amongst us because so many people go through those classes. And yet most of them then get jobs, maybe marry, have a family, and soon enough those ideas are forgotten. They're too busy trying to figure out the latest tax loophole so that they pay less taxes, and trying to get their kids into the coolest, best daycare that only people, you know, only they can afford. Luckily for us, the radicalization goes only so deep. And this is true just broadly, much broader than this. I'll give you another example, which has always been striking to me. There are close to 2 billion Muslims in the world. By some estimates, there's somewhere between 500 to 800 million Muslims who express support for the Islamist jihadist cause. 500 to 800 million who express support for ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Hamas and Hezbollah and generally the jihadi cause. Of those 500 million to 800 million, how many of them are willing to strap a bomb, walk into a supermarket and blow themselves up, or walk into a coffee shop and blow themselves up, and go and get those 73 virgins How many of them are willing to do that? How many of them are excited to do it? How many of them are interested in getting involved in organizing such things or managing such stuff? Luckily, very, 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 very few. We know this. How? Because there are not that many suicide bombers. I mean, there are periods in which there are more, there are periods in which there are less, but generally, there are not that many. Nothing is compared to the 500, 800 million people who claim to adhere to these ideas and support the suicide bomber when he goes. But they're not willing to do it themselves. So, our society, even some of the weaker parts of our society, basically, I think, helped make violence unacceptable. And people are not quite willing to go out there and kill and be killed for the cause that it's easy for them to claim as their own, to claim that they're willing to fight for. Well, when the fight actually happens, almost nobody is there to actually get involved in a fight. Oh, I miscounted the virgins. I apologize. It's 72. I promoted. I made it even more attractive. I mean, God, if there were 73 virgins, you'd have a lot more suicide bombers. Right? These Muslims are cheap and they only do 72. So, anyway, I was watching Nick Fuentes today. And what is it about Nick Fuentes that gets people? I mean, he's got millions of followers and people excited about him. And yeah, they're all racists and anti-Semites, but how did he get those people? Because a lot of people weren't when they first watched him. What is his message that is so attractive? And what's the message that of most successful people in this business, in the business I'm in? And I was thinking, God, I'm doing this all wrong. See, if I want a lot of followers, if we want to really increase subscribers, then I should have given you a whole rant today on how we're at the precipice of the end of Western civilization. We're at each other's throats. People are killing each other left and right. I mean, there's carnage in the streets, and look, and the left and right and everybody, and there's a civil war about to break any day now, and life generally sucks. You guys should feel bad about the world because you can't get jobs. If you're a guy, you're not getting any women because of feminism or whatever. If you're a woman, you can't find a decent guy because they're all feminized. I can keep going. I can do this shtick. I can't do it with conviction, but I can do it. Things are just horrible. That sells. Catastrophizing, end of the world, millennium cults, things are horrible, things are bad, things are falling apart. That sells. And of course, I know why it's happening. I'm the only one who knows why it's happening because I'm the only one out there. I'm not the only one who knows what's happening. I'm the only one who has the courage and the honesty to tell you who really is doing this all to you. They're all lying to you. They're all making stuff up. But I am authentic. I'm going to tell you exactly who's behind this plot to destroy the world. And we all know who it is. I don't even have to say it because just by implying it, we all know who it is. See, I can do it. And, my viewership would go through the roof. Go through the roof. Lucinda, are you trying to lighten the mood? She's asking if waffles or pancakes, which is better. I had these amazing pancakes. Where did I have these amazing pancakes? I can't remember now. Anyway, I think Jennifer's right in asking if blueberries are involved. So here's the point. This is not a show where you're going to get catastrophism. I look at the data. I'm not going to get panicky. I want to know what's actually going on. Is there a left-wing network of terrorists trying to kill leading conservative spokesmen? I mean, maybe, but I don't see any evidence of it. And certainly, the murder of Charlie Cook does not seem related to that. There might be a bunch of kids in their 20s maybe, but nihilistic kids fooling around on the internet and talking about that. But is there an Al-Qaeda of the left, the ISIS of the left, just scheming and building and creating platforms from which they will then descend on the world and kill their political opponents? I don't think so. I don't see any evidence that there is such. There is a massive number of just evil academics destroying kids' minds, teaching them complete and utter nonsense, and encouraging whatever sense of nihilism they already have. But it doesn't really seem to stick. Even Gen Z is going into the workplace. As I told you before, they're making more money than previous generations. Everybody complains about them in the workplace, but they must be doing okay because they're making good money. A number of them have become entrepreneurs and done very, very, very well. And the rest are becoming corporate, getting corporate jobs and becoming part of the machine and working for the man. These are terms from the 60s, I think, and doing their thing. I am interested. I see people saying that Destiny said some controversial things. I'm curious what he said. I don't know if you can write it on YouTube, but I'm curious what Destiny said. And in terms, I assume, in terms of the Charlie Cook thing. So I think, by the way, I think it's much more likely there are organizations on the right, scheming the overthrow of the U.S. government or planning or doing things like that than they're on the left. Again, the left seems to me fragmented, disorganized, incompetent, stupid. Well, not stupid, but just incompetent. Incompetent. And very much in their own heads. And very much not oriented to action. Whereas January 6th was coordinated. Was planned. It was incompetent. I mean, the good thing is, generally, these people on the left and right are completely incompetent. And if you're going to fear anybody, and this is I think important, if you're going to fear anybody, then what you should fear is not radicals on the left and radicals on the right. What you really should fear, of course this is a consequence of radicals on the left and radicals on the right, but you really should fear is our government. I think our government is the source of real authoritarianism down the road. It's already a source of fear if you've got brown skin, if you look Latin in certain cities in America. Our government is a source of fear. We'll see, but based on what Pam Bondi said yesterday, a source of fear for anyone like me criticizing the right, our government is what is going to trample on our rights, already does, already has, and seems to be committed, left and right, united in one way or another, to continue to trample on our rights. So I think if we're going to fear something, we should watch the left and the right, because they're going to do a lot of damage, and they drive what happens in politics. But in terms of actual threat to your life, to your liberty, it's the federal government. It's the federal government that is likely the biggest threat to you.